Now, what do you do if you have an alcoholic in your family? What is your role in the whole process of what's going on with your loved one who's suffering from this disease, this mental disorder? This is the first time seeing me again. I was married for 25 years, and unfortunately, my wife succumbed to the disease a little over 5 years ago. And during her, periods of, extreme alcoholism, she went through 7 rehabilitation facilities. She went to multiple outpatient programs. Some of it was court ordered and some of it was voluntary. She had several emergency stays over the years, into the double digits of how many times she went to the emergency room or had to call 911 for an ambulance. She had psych holds. She had many inpatient operations that were related. She had a bariatric surgery. She had 3 operations on her ankle, and she had both her knees replaced. And all of this happened really the last 5, 6 years of her life. And there was a lot going on near the end of her life. But what's your role as a family member in all of this? You have to realize the alcoholic in your family has got to want to, number one, they got to want to be here. They have to have purpose, and they really got to be at the point where they're not psychologically, emotionally, and physically addicted to the alcohol to the point where they can't get past it. That's why it's so important to recognize that the person has a problem, point it out, and create boundaries. So let's continue the conversation. And again, I have a complete coaching program. It's called There's an Alcoholic in the Family. It's really designed to help both the family and the alcoholic. Set up a breakthrough call. The link is in the link tree in the bio. It takes about 45 minutes. We're going to do a deep dive into what's going on with you and your family. Make sure it's a good fit. I know the call is free, but the course is not. But I'm looking for people who really want to change their life and the life of their family. So, what do you do as a family member? What is your role in all of this? And every case is completely different. That's why it has to be customized. There is no two that are exactly the same. In my wife's case, her ultimatums, and we really did have interventions. She would go to a rehab facility, and it was always great. It was always wonderful to have her back, and she would be her, loving, bubbly, good energy self. And then, 2, 3 weeks later, she'd be right back on the couch, completely inebriated, right back to where she had started from. And it was heartbreaking and it was gut wrenching. And it's impossible not to be drawn emotionally into that with anger and animosity and frustration, because you're often left holding the bag and you got to take care of everything. Well, this person is really, really mentally and emotionally, psychologically incapacitated. And so much falls on family members, depending on the relationship. If it's a parent, it's very difficult because you can't necessarily abandon your children as easily as maybe a spouse or a different family member, for example. It's never easy, but it's important to understand your role is just to set boundaries. You have to take care of yourself. Don't get too sucked into the energy and the emotions. Easier said than done, but you have to really separate yourself from what's going on with the alcoholic. You have to realize, if they had diabetes or cancer or heart disease, you can't change that person. And everybody, to some degree, has a culpability for their disease. If you have diabetes, change your diet. If you have obesity, change your diet. If you have heart disease, maybe you don't smoke so much, don't drink so much, change your diet. Alcohol is no different. You have to change your behavior, and you have to replace your behavior with better positive behaviors. True with any disease or any illness or any addiction. Okay, and you as a family member can only create boundaries so that person has the opportunity to do that. If they don't take that opportunity, or if they misplace that opportunity, again, it's not your fault, and it doesn't fall on your shoulders. No, I know it's easier said than done, but sometimes you do have to create a distance from that person. Sometimes you have to separate from that person. If you are a parent and your child is the alcoholic or the one that's suffering from this, that's easier said than done. But sometimes tough love is what needs to take place. Get them into a rehab. Create ultimatums. It may not be the most optimal way to do things, but sometimes there's nothing left to do. Okay, and then just carry on with your life. Don't get too wrapped up into it. Understand that it's not your fault. You can't make someone do something that they may not be ready for. Okay, you can lead a horse to water, can't make him drink type of thing, and you can't want something more for somebody than they want it for themselves. They have to want to change their life. Not anybody's responsibility, but the person that's dealing with this. They have to be able to recognize that they have a problem and take action on that reality. It's a tough disease, because this is why you want to get it in the earlier stages, because when somebody does become physically, emotionally, and psychologically dependent, in most ways they're cooked. They're cooked, because it's going to be progressive and it's only going to get worse. And for them it goes beyond, just covering up their emotional problem. It goes beyond covering up their anxiety and their stress. Now they're physically and emotionally addicted to the alcohol. So you got a double whammy. It's become their why, it's become their solution to their problem, and now they're physically addicted and emotionally and psychologically addicted. It's a tough place to be, and as a family member, your options are pretty limited. Above all, and to finish, I believe it's important to be able to put this into perspective as a family member. Your loved one is, in effect, disabled, okay, emotionally, psychologically. They're disabled if they're an alcoholic. And you have to put it in that kind of context. If they're physically, emotionally, or psychologically abusive, that's not something you can be around. All bets are off. You have to remove yourself from the situation. In my wife's case, she was a very nice person even when she was drinking. She just suffered from this. So that's why we hung in there with her and tried to get her as much help as we could. And it did work to some extent, but then she had so many other extenuating circumstances with all her physical problems, even though it was the alcohol. And eventually the person will get to the point where they're past the point of no return, I think. And they're too far gone. You can't abandon somebody who's too far gone, in my opinion. I think that would be cruel and unusual punishment, especially if they're a spouse. But that was my experience. It's not the experience of everyone. And again, you can find the whole experience in Amanda, A Cautionary Tale of Alcoholism. It's the memoir. Again, it's on Amazon. You can click on the link above. It's also on my website, right on this page, and you can get it internationally. There's an international link in the link tree on this page. Electronically, it's available on Amazon, Apple website, and Barnes & Noble. And again, thanks for listening.